Welcome back from the pit lane to the podcast. This is Bromula One. You're here with Ryan, Caleb, and Steven. It's 2024. Fellas, you guys excited?
Oh, yeah, we're excited. I can't wait to get into all of the off-season stuff, all of the next season stuff, and all the current stuff. How about you, Caleb?
Oh yeah, it's good to be back, boys. We had a bit of a vacation period. What was that, like 4 or 5? Well, 3 months, 3, 4 months of time apart, and just enjoying our lives, focusing on work and stuff like that. Taking a break from the podcast, but we're happy to be back. We're very excited. I am specifically.
It was nice to get a little disconnect from the 23 season. It was kind of a long slog there towards the end, but we're back. We're energized. We're ready to go. And let's get started. We're going to talk about some crazy off-season drama and nothing bigger than the Lewis Hamilton move, right? Ryan, you've been a fan of this sport for so long. Has anything been bigger than this move?
Oh, I've been a fan of the sport for so long, longer than anybody in history.
The history of Bromula One.
there, there have been some pretty big moves, driver moves, changing teams at different points in their career. This is among one of the biggest moves. Lewis Hamilton was thought to stay at Mercedes until he retired. He's my age. He's nearing 40 years old, and how much more can you go? But yeah, everybody anticipated him staying in Mercedes. Surprise, he's going to Ferrari next year.
Yeah, it's a move that literally no one saw coming. We joked last year about a move to Aston Martin potentially, some Aston Martin moves to Mercedes. Like pretty much everything is on the table at this point because of this one domino. Caleb, who do you think is the most affected in this move?
Hmm. Well, you would think it would be Fernando Alonso with all the comments he's been making about it. He's just had snide remarks like, oh, that Lewis said that it was his dream to drive for Ferrari. I think it's everyone's dream. It's just Ferrari. They're like, I don't know, on a pedestal when it comes to Formula One. And Fernando was just like, it wasn't your dream 6 months ago. And, suggesting at maybe some other reasons why he's switching. I think he's just stirring the pot a little bit. But he did also mention, out of 3 world drivers champions, he's the only one that is available in 2025, suggesting he might want to take that seat. I've heard of this kid with the last name Antonelli potentially being a front runner for that seat. Obviously, the most affected is George Russell, though. Can he lead a team? Do you think I don't know. That's what came to my mind.
Yeah, I gotta stick up for my boy Carlos Sainz a little bit.
Oh, that's true. Yeah, my goodness.
Obviously, he's going to be without a seat in 2025. We know that he's got strong ties with Audi. They're entering the sport at that same time. Carlos Sainz Sr. has done really well for Audi and a very accomplished driver in the rally circuits for them. So it seems like a natural pairing for Carlos, but they're not exactly going to be at the front of the field. So for a driver of Carlos's caliber, it just doesn't make sense for him to take that big of a step back. Obviously, it was a huge surprise for him. No one saw this coming. And I do want to touch on the Fernando Alonso real quick. That's kind of like calling the kettle black, if you will, coming from the pot. And let me explain that. He moved from Alpine to Aston Martin because they gave him a long-term contract, right? Well, Mercedes, one of the things that they didn't want to do was give a long-term commitment to Lewis Hamilton, both on the track and off. So I can't blame him for going to a new team that's going to give him that long-term support through his twilight years. Same thing that Fernando Alonso did.
Yeah, that's a very good point. And this is a big risk for Lewis. He has a lot on the table. That 8th world championship was stolen from him back in 2021. I don't know which side of the Steven, I see you smirking. It was controversial, okay? But imagine this. You've got drivers who have made the switch to Ferrari after winning multiple world championships. You've got Fernando Alonso, you've got Sebastian Vettel, you have Michael Schumacher back in the day who all made that move to Ferrari hoping for glory. Michael Schumacher pulled it off. Now, can Lewis Hamilton pull it off? If so, if he can get another world championship out of Ferrari, holy cow, he has just cemented his position as the greatest of all time.
Yeah, I completely agree with you. I think this is his one last swing at that top step, and being the undisputed greatest of all time. Because right now he's statistically the greatest. He has the most poles, most wins, tied with most championships. He's got them with two different teams, which is already pretty cool. If he could get another title with a third team, on top of being the only 8-time world champion, it would be pretty difficult to come up with some sort of argument against him being the greatest of all time.
Rename it
Caleb, you're
Lewis
kind of new to the
Hamilton.
sport. How do you think he's going to match up with Charles?
With Chuck Leclerc, as us Americans say. Oh, that's what I was going to bring up. I think that'll be a really fun battle. Last season, towards the end of the season, we started talking about the strongest pairing of teammates on a team. We dropped Mercedes, Ferrari, McLaren. We had kind of agreed that Red Bull didn't have the strongest pairing just because of Sergio's lack of performance. But I think this might I think it does catapult Ferrari into the top step. And we've seen a lot of Charles favoritism in Ferrari, and I think for good reason. I think Carlos kind of, made it a little bit more even with his performance last season and the way that Ferrari treated him. But with the way the contracts went, obviously not. But this is going to be really, really fun racing to watch, even if Red Bull is still dominant well into 2025. At least we're going to get a hell of a battle for the Ferrari drivers to see who comes out on top. Do you guys have any thoughts and opinions on that? Who do you think's gonna?
Well, Stephen, you had mentioned to me off the pod that Charles is considered one of the best qualifiers out there, best over a single lap. And and you were hesitant, to agree that Lewis Hamilton was maybe one of the better qualifiers out there. So how do you think that qualifying battle is going to shape up at Ferrari?
I think maybe my comments, I'll clear up some of that. He's not as dominant over his teammates historically in qualifying as he is in the race. And if we look at his stint with Valtteri Bottas as his teammate for all those years, Valtteri definitely had his time. He was great over one lap, wasn't as great in the races as we know, but still to be able to take those pole positions away from your teammate is an opportunity. We know track position is really important on a number of circuits. So I do think Charles will have the edge, just familiarity with the team, with the car, etc. It is nice that he's waiting for a big regulation mix up, but boy, I'm happy to eat my words if Lewis has got a big 75% advantage over him. Can't wait.
Like it. Any shoeies you want to go out on a limb on, and any bets you want to place?
Well, let's remind everyone that this is for 2025. So Mercedes is still going to have Lewis for this year. 2024 is, on our front door, but
Doing a farewell tour.
Yeah, it's going to be awkward, right?
Oh my gosh,
It's got to be awkward.
You got to at least summer break. I don't know.
The team stops sharing information with you. They're kind of giving you the cold shoulder a little bit. They're still being nice to you, but you know that things are strained.
Yeah, he wore red sneakers for their outfit reveal. Did you guys see that?
No, he
May
did
have been
not.
some
He
subtle
always likes
stabs here
pops
and
of
there.
color though, but it just happened to be red.
Yeah.
Wow.
I don't know. It'll be interesting because this 2024, we kind of all expect Red Bull to just get out there and do another victory lap, right? But who knows? McLaren did phenomenally. We haven't talked about McLaren at all yet, and they were the biggest challengers to Red Bull towards the end of the last season.
Yeah, that'll be.
Yeah, we're seeing. Caleb, did you have something? Go ahead.
I just made my little comment. It'll be fun to watch. That's all I got to say. Ryan, go ahead.
I was just gonna say for 2024, we've seen most of the car reveals. There's still a couple. Mercedes hasn't revealed yet as of this recording, but we're seeing a coalescence of design, of philosophy, I guess you could say, with these cars, with the Red Bull style side pod air inlets, which are really thin letter boxes with that long, they call it the duck bill kind of air inlet. So we're seeing a major redesign of a lot of cars. I'm hoping that that means that the likes of Aston Martin and McLaren are really going to be battling towards the sharp end of the grid this year.
Yeah, that's a good point. I have noticed that with every car reveal and livery reveal, a lot of them copy that Red Bull design. The one that is, I feel like the most unique is the V carb. What are we calling that team now?
Formerly
Toro
known
Rosso?
as AlphaTauri slash Toro Rosso slash whoever the
Visa
hell they
Cash
were.
App, Red Bull. Yeah. Anyway, their car looks so, the side pods look so unique and so different. There are like harsher angles, I feel like, compared to the other cars, but they all do have that letterbox duckbill inlet. And I was very happy to see those as well, Ryan, because I was like, oh, maybe they maybe they'll compete with Red Bull this year. Speaking of liveries, though, there's been a lot of controversy with teams being frustrated. I think it's with the weight, with the paint and stuff like that. So a lot of teams will just be kind of slap on carbon fiber, a touch of color, and then boom. We're seeing a lot of mostly exposed carbon fiber with a touch of the team's colors in these liveries. And I know it's upsetting a lot of Formula One fans. Save Ferrari, V Carb, Stake had a big uh, livery
So
change. What
many
do
of
you
these
guys feel
teams.
about that? About
Yeah,
the carbon fiber liveries with a touch of color?
I think this is just a result of weight being such a touchy thing in Formula One. These cars are so big and bloated, and they're doing a lot of efforts to save some weight. And that comes down to even just the paint. Adding paint onto a car is going to add weight to a car. And while it doesn't look good aesthetically, they're still fighting for thousandths of a second over one lap. So you can't blame the teams for doing that with the cars. But for a spectator, yeah, it's not great to look at.
Mm-hmm.
It's going to be especially difficult to differentiate some of these cars from the others, all in the effort of saving a few grams to save a few hundreds or thousandths of a second in theory.
Mm-hmm.
But I think individually the cars look cool. I like the livery. I like the look of the carbon fiber, but to have them all following that design trend is not all that exciting for me.
Mm-hmm. You, Ryan, are a big fan of Lewis Hamilton, and in turn, Mercedes. You saw Mercedes do the silver arrows type look, and then they switched to just the all black car. Which did you like more between those two, and why?
And why? Wow. It's weird to have the car called Silver Arrow and then be all black.
Yeah.
But when they launched that car, I can't remember what year it was, if it was 2020 or 2021, but it made a splash. I loved it. I thought it looked sharp as hell. And maybe all the other teams did too. But I'm just
Mm-hmm.
glad that Ferrari came out with a mostly red car. I love the little streaks of white and yellow in the paint. I just think it looks so sharp.
Yeah, you guys, both
Yeah.
of you always talk about the Ferrari livery and how you just love the way the Ferrari car looks.
Okay, I loved the way it came out in 2022 with those bird baths. Oh,
Oh, okay.
that was slick. It just
Yeah.
looked like the car was, oh man, under the lights and all the contours. It was just beautiful.
Yeah, I can't say I've been a fan of Ferrari liveries in the past because they're kind of like Red Bull. They stick to a very similar theme. But you're right, Steven, that 2022 car, I was just like jaw dropping to me. The lines on it, I thought were gorgeous.
I think we all wanted so badly for that car to be fast, and it was. They came out in Bahrain, and Charles stuck it on pole, and then ended up winning that race. It was awesome. It was such a good opportunity for Ferrari to kick butt, and then what looks fast isn't always the case. You can ask George Russell.
He was forecast for a podium.
Which car looks fast this year so far, guys? What a
It's
dork.
interesting. I think you brought this up, Caleb, that they're all kind of adopting that Red Bull design. So we're not seeing any huge divergences from that mean. And typically we see a lot of evolutions rather than revolutions, right? And so a lot of the teams are just evolving from their concepts of last year. It's interesting that Mercedes and Ferrari are totally building the car from the ground up, even just 1 year away from huge regulation change. Do you guys see any like huge concept changes between like other than those two teams from last year?
I haven't been keeping a finger on the pulse too much, but I know a few teams have switched some of their suspension arrangements from I can't remember if it's from pull rod to push rod or vice versa in the front or the
Mhm.
rear. So some teams, I think Aston Martin have, specifically, I read today, have changed their suspension setup front and rear to help with that nosedive, give more stability
Mhm.
in different situations. So I think that that's where we've seen a lot of the change in addition to the side pods. Um, but yeah, these upcoming regulations, I'm hoping we get a real mix up of how these cars are designed and shaped.
Audi to the front. Just kidding. Yeah, I think that's what I've noticed with Aston Martin. I read as well that that rear push rod suspension upgrade or update, I should say, is going to be universal for all the Mercedes powered cars. And I think that might be for like the engine purposes. That's what I read. So they were like, even though this is Aston Martin's car, this is what McLaren's and Mercedes is going to look like as well. So that's kind of an interesting tidbit, I thought. But I've noticed that a lot of the on the side pods, the underneath of the side pod, the shapes have changed a lot as well to closer to that of Red Bulls. I think a lot of cars last year had very, very simple under the side pod designs, and they've become a little bit more complex, maybe a little bit of a steeper angle as well. And so that just gets me excited thinking that, hey, maybe the gap will be closed. The Red Bull concept is working, and everyone's like, yeah, let's move that direction. But like you said, McLaren or Mercedes and Ferrari, who knows? They might be sticking to their own little thing. But anyway, yeah, it seems like there's a lot of similarities, a few changes, but I don't know.
Yeah, it's cool. In this time period, we're seeing cars being revealed like one at a time, and they're doing some testing and installing installment laps, if you will, just making sure the car turns left and right, brakes and starts. There's not really much you can achieve at this point on track until we get into preseason testing. And speaking of next year, do you guys want to talk about predictions, hopes, dreams,
I think hope
potential
is a good
drama
one.
that you're looking at? I mean, there's a lot of that.
Let's be
Caleb, what you
honest,
got?
man. I is it okay if I go, Ryan?
Yeah, absolutely.
I um I think we've alluded to it this entire podcast, all three of us, but I think we're all, Red Bull's here and they're going to stay here. But the gap may be close. I think the midfield teams are going to do a lot better. I think we might see some V carb, um, AlphaTauri jump and start competing with the likes of Alpine a little bit more. But you can't. It's hard to know. You never know.
It's really hard to know. You know who I think looks fast though is that Williams. Let's go, Alex Albon podium. No, double podium, Sargi and Albon. Calling it. I think Williams is
Like
going to
in
come
the
out the
year.
gate swinging
In
Oh,
Bahrain or like
race
at
one.
some point?
at some point during the season. I think
Okay.
they're going to have a nice race.
I I would do a shoey if that's the case, but I
Gotta be
was gonna
a
say
shoe.
Williams was gonna be my pick for the Aston Martin jump, from like sixth or seventh last year, maybe snag a couple podiums. They don't have Fernando Alonso, but they do have Alex Albon.
And
Mhm.
Logan Sargent. He's underrated, okay? Future world champion material.
I think
You
he's
just
very
start
rated.
casually slipping in Logan Sargent. It's like, yeah. Oh wow. Who's getting uh who's getting that last Mercedes seat for next year? And I know that's
Alex Albon.
you think Alex?
Alex Albon. 100%. Yeah. And by 100%, I mean like maybe 40%. Uh, who knows? Because Alonso, it might be an opportunity for them. That would be a way for them to slap back at Lewis. Imagine what happens if Mercedes comes out with a great car this year and they win races.
He goes, I'd take it back.
Take backsies.
Yeah. True. That could be so interesting. I think it helps
That's what I'm
motivate the
most
team
looking
more.
forward to. That's what I'm most looking forward to this year is the relationship between Mercedes and Lewis. I know he's going to be professional and all that, but there are going to be times we saw them crash each other out multiple times last year. And that's not going to go over the same way. You have a 7-time world champion next to the guy who was, first or second year in this car with this team. Of course, you're going to be giving someone preferential treatment. It's not
Mhm.
the case anymore because now you've got someone who's going to be with the team next year and someone who's leaving. So it'll be interesting.
Ooh, very spicy.
Yes, that's a really
Yep.
good point you make, Stephen. There is an end in sight, and so I feel like a lot of people who have been working hard to build a relationship with Lewis, specifically George, are probably going to be like, "Oh, I don't have to maintain this relationship anymore." We might be seeing some wrestle tussles.
Especially if they're not fighting for anything of meaning, right? If one of them's in fifth and the other one's in sixth, let them fight.
This is George's last chance to show it to Lewis in equal machinery, so he's probably going to really take on this last season and come out guns a blazing.
Russell Tussle, baby. How I've missed that.
Him and Alex would be fun teammates, though. I feel like they're really good friends off track, but on track, I think they have a similar kind of skill level, and it'll help us gauge where Alex Albon really is if they do become teammates. Because he's outperforming in the Williams, but is it really him outperforming, or is it Logan just absolutely sucking, or is it, there's a lot of little things that go into it, so it'll be fun seeing him if he goes there.
Well, he is still a Mercedes driver, so he's still contracted through them, I believe. I know Red Bull was trying to lock him up to prevent that move. So, I mean, if we've got leading candidates for that, it's probably Antonelli, Albon, and Alonso, right?
Guys,
All A's.
what about Mick Schumacher? He's back there just chomping at the bit. Come on.
Oscar Piastri
But
just doing a random flip. Can never trust that kid.
that's true. Although McLaren's in a better spot than Mercedes right now, wouldn't you guys agree?
I think
I
they're
would
in a
think so. They've got two young, excellent drivers and a car on the up and up.
Yeah, there's like a bit of a
Caleb,
conjuncture going on. Seems like Mercedes is doing a little bit of a this, and McLaren's doing a bit of a that, and they might be in the same realm. Who knows which direction both teams go from this? But yeah, I think they're in a similar area, at least same tier.
Okay. Let's talk about race wins 2024. So we've got 24 circuits on the calendar. The new addition, well, we had China jumping back, and then also Madrid, another street circuit that brings big smiles to Max Verstappen's face. He loves the street circuits. Of the 24, which ones are available to win? Are we talking like a 22 of 24 for Red Bull? I don't think so.
Yeah, I don't think we're going to see the dominance that we saw last year. I hope, fingers crossed, that it's going to be more of a mixed
15,
bag.
24. Yeah, I don't know. Any new race winners? Who
Yes.
are your predictions for new race winners?
Got one.
You know mine.
Who is
It's
it?
going to be
Tell
one
us.
of the McLaren boys, and I'm thinking it's going to be Lando Norris.
So Ryan and I were talking about this off the pod, and we were going through who has the opportunity to become a new race winner, because there's not a lot of opportunities now. If you consider Piastri's sprint race win as checked that box, then it's really just Lando Norris. Can he win a race? Ocon's done it. Gasly's done it. So there goes the Alpines.
Mm-hmm.
Both Ferraris, both Red Bulls, Aston Martin, half of them, and both Mercedes. So it's really just up to McLaren. Is McLaren going to win a race this year?
Mm-hmm. As Lance has not won a race. I mean,
No.
if Aston makes a considerable jump or starts the season strong like they did last year, Lance Stroll race winner. If Alonso maybe crashes out or something,
Or maybe, hear me out, Daddy Stroll is going to buy Lance a seat at Mercedes for 2025, and Lance wins his first race and then retires.
2012 in
And then
2025.
retires.
Yeah.
Starts playing tennis full time. You're right. It's really down to just there's only a few teams that are going to be competing for wins. And even of those few teams, it's really Red Bull giving up the wins, if anything. So I think it's just Lando who really has the opportunity. I don't think Lance is consistent enough to win a race, especially with how much better Fernando is. There's no shot,
I'm going to predict that Red Bull will win 18 of the 24. I think that's, what is that, 75% still? That's still pretty freaking dominant, but 4 of those races might go to other teams, 2 to Checo. Yeah, we'll see.
We'll see.
Wait, Checo's still on Red Bull?
He is for now. Yeah.
Because I'm looking at the constructor standings from last year, and Max by himself was first.
As a constructor.
Yeah.
That was hard, guys. I had a hard time even if we're being honest, even sitting down and recording because it was just the same thing every week.
Yeah.
Just Max Verstappen. What a great year.
Yeah, and the only guy who won another race besides Red Bull just got canned. What the hell?
The Sainz disrespect is unreal, though. He gets majorly disrespected.
Come back home. Come to Red Bull.
Ooh, that'd be interesting.
That would be interesting. They weren't teammates year one, right? They both joined Toro Rosso at the same time, and Max just destroyed him, right?
Yeah, it wasn't super close, but it wasn't the Logan Sargent disrespect that we see sometimes. Sorry, Ryan. Not sorry. We got to mention, first of all, that this is the first time in F1 history that we're starting a year with the same lineup that we ended. Is that correct?
That's correct. First time ever.
And are we going to have any 10 race kicks halfway through the season? Anyone's going to get the Nick DeVries treatment?
Yeah,
I think
Logan might get it.
He might get it. It might be less.
3 races in. All right, buddy, you're out.
Yeah. He might.
There was a good stretch last year where he crashed 3 or 4 times, even in practices, qualifying. It's just man, what is he doing to keep that seat? And I think all of us were kind of scratching our heads when he got renewed at Williams.
Mm-hmm. If I were the owner of a racing team that's worth estimated $1 billion and generates lots of revenue, but isn't generating as much as it could, just from a financial perspective, I would be get this guy out of here. He's damaging cars, costing us money, and also not performing. I don't know. But he's supposedly just a few tenths off or on pace with Albon in certain simulations. I don't know. At some point, it's
what does that mean?
You see what's on track, that's what you're getting.
Yeah, I agree. So if you were team principal, Caleb, you'd have kicked him. If you were the Gunther Steiners, rip.
If I were Gunther Steiner,
Rest
I would
in
probably follow the
peace.
path of Gunther Steiner and get fired from Haas. No, I don't know. Obviously, I don't have as much information as I would need to make a decision like that. But as a fan, I feel like that's the logical decision to make.
Yeah, I think James Vowles is doing a phenomenal job at Williams. I was going to say Mercedes, but whoops, he's not there anymore. And I think he's probably happier now, seeing what's going down there. Just a fall from grace.
Well, it's going to be an
Gunther
exciting
Steiner.
season. We didn't even mention Gunther.
Gunther, bye-bye.
What was your favorite moment of Drive to Survive?
He's got to be
Good,
on
yeah.
some type of commentary for the Formula One season. They have to have him on a crew or something like that. Yeah, it would be hilarious.
Yeah. Otherwise, who's going to be a bunch of wankers? It's Gunther.
And honestly, he would probably be very open and honest about the Haas team too, which would probably be funny to hear as well.
Oh,
Those
Gene
bunch of
Haas would love
wankers.
that.
Ryan, I want to hear your opinion about Haas. They're standing on the grid, just looking towards next year, but also like Andretti wants to be on the grid and they're getting denied because they're not going to be competitive. But how are you allowing Haas to be on the grid?
Yeah, I'm surprised we didn't even talk about that. Copy paste, delete Haas, paste Andretti in there. Give us a team that actually wants to go racing. Haas is there for the advertising money. It's helping his CNC manufacturing business. That's great for him. It's making him money. But like, come on, bro. You can't be satisfied with being last place. And that's where they are. And then they lost their biggest star. It was Gunter Steiner, the star of Drive to Survive. And that alone has to be worth something. It's too bad, honestly, they let him go. I think F1 should let Haas go and let Andretti join.
It's a bold take, but I think I agree.
Yeah, I agree. It just seems like the sport wants the American dollar, but it doesn't want our involvement or our participation. It's kind of confusing, right? We've got 3 races in the United States, up from 1 just not too long ago. Circuit of the Americas has been on the calendar for a long time, but the introductions of Miami and Las Vegas, they don't really add much in terms of competitiveness and the sporting aspect of Formula One. But they do add is the spectacle, right? You've got the Miami merch coming out, you've got the Las Vegas and all of that spectacle that it is. They drove a freaking Formula One car in a casino. They hung it off one of the roofs of a casino. Like, they're doing just ridiculous stuff. And they're charging people insane prices because of it. So all of it is just greed. And that's why they're not letting Andretti on. And it's getting annoying.
And maybe this is our last note here. I don't have the last word, but maybe they're afraid. Americans aren't known for their international racing pedigree. You've got Ferrari, McLaren, the Italians, the French, the Germans. These guys are racers, and maybe they're afraid of what Andretti is packing. Just saying.
What do you think, Caleb? You think they got a chance?
Andretti? Oh my goodness, yes. It's like they would be backed by the entirety of America. Like, I'm not trying to be like, oh, I'm not like an American elitist, I may have some like subconscious biases that I'm unaware of towards America. We don't need to talk about that though, but I think they would do well. They would, if anything, they would be competitive. We're a prideful nation.
Speaking of support for American consumerism or whatever, how many Haas shirts do you own, Caleb?
Exactly 0, because they suck eggs.
0. And on that note, guys, we're out of time.
They're an Italian team.
Thanks for joining in. Adios.